Hi everybody, we're back for another discussion. This is Paul Micarelli and my son Paul Giuseppe, and today's topic is going to be topical, and that is politics. Get into subjects that might be a little more contentious here. Politics is probably the most divisive issue that there is, especially in today's modern climate. But I think it's important. It's part of everybody's life and affects everyone. So I think that's something important to kind of discuss. And right now is a pretty crazy time politically. We just found out that President Trump has COVID, which is obviously the biggest headline right now. We just got past one of the probably craziest debates I've ever seen in presidential politics between President Trump and former Vice President Biden, and it was just completely insane. And that is really just the state of politics in general right now, especially in the age of Trump. I started kind of becoming politically aware during the George W. Bush years. After 9/11, I just kind of opened my eyes to really the national and world politics that are going on. And I was in my early 20s and an adult, and that's kind of when I started to open my eyes to political realities of the world. And I foolishly thought that George W. Bush was probably the worst president that we could ever vote in. And then along came Donald Trump and showed me that no, in fact, the barrel has no bottom. So as you can probably tell just from what I've said so far, I lean more towards the, I guess you would say, progressive, liberal, which I don't really like that word. It sounds like you're just a libertine and anything goes, which is not how I really feel. But more towards, I guess, the left-wing end of the spectrum. I'm actually registered as an independent. I don't want to identify with any particular party. And I think that's the biggest problem in politics, especially in American politics right now, is our two-party system and just the complete divisive kind of system that sets up. The two-party system is one kind of one of the biggest problems that our system faces. The other one is all the money in politics. The Citizens United decision allowing unlimited spending and money in politics, and just all the shenanigans that kind of evolve from that. But like I said, I try to stay kind of neutral as far as my preconceptions and how I look at politics. But it's hard not to take sides, especially, like I said, when there is such a dichotomy, there is such a just divided kind of system set up. And there's a lot of other countries that have they don't have first past the post voting like we do. They have kind of a runoff system. I think that would go a long way to solving some of the problems in politics. I think parties should just be abolished altogether and people should just run on their individual merits. And I understand why parties exist and why it's kind of a natural kind of way for allegiances to be formed and evolve. But I think it really just causes more problems than it solves. And I think especially when you get down to just a two-party system, it becomes such a team sport. It just becomes you versus me, and one team versus the other, blue versus red, Democrat versus Republican, and any chance of a third party in this kind of setup is just completely impossible, because nobody's going to vest themselves in another party at the risk of letting the person they like the least get power. So it's a real problem, and I don't see how anybody or any group is going to implement the change we need. I think getting the money out of politics is probably an easier proposition. You know, repealing Citizens United or creating laws to limit the, you know, amount of donations and spending in politics. But getting rid of the two-party system is going to be very, very difficult. That's going to be has to be some kind of consensus across both of the existing parties to change the system, which I just can't see happening. So it'll be interesting to see how that ever resolves or evolves into something else, given you know, how entrenched the political parties are right now in these interests. But like I said, you know, I'm living in the age of Trump. Paul here was born while Donald Trump was president, and right in the middle of this COVID-19 pandemic, and it's just really a crazy time for all of us, and especially now with this election season, which is why I'm kind of making this video. You know, politics is in full swing. Like I said, we just had this wild ass debate where Trump was just, you know, acting like a complete maniac, and Biden was so befuddled he didn't know what the hell was going on, could barely even respond. And you know, just realizes what a circus this whole thing's become. I mean, politics has always become a circus. Like, even just debates, even when they're done in a formal and controlled way, it's really like a dog and pony show. There's never really too much substance ever talked about from all the debates I've seen. And it's, you know, people tend to think like politics is worse than it's ever been, and everybody's, you know, more divisive, and, you know, the ads are meaner than they've ever been. And I don't think that's necessarily true. I think, you know, it's kind of the same thing that goes along with nostalgia of, you know, the good old days, and things used to be better back then. I think just people have amnesia, like, as a culture. And politics have always been dirty. It's always been divisive. It's always been brutal. And there's always been, you know, lies and mud being slung, and money being, you know, handed around. And, you know, you can go back to the beginning of the United States, and even before that, and see how in history, you know, politics has always been a, you know, pretty messy affair. But now, you know, with social media, with mass media and cable news, 24-hour cable news, and infotainment news like Fox, and even to some extent, you know, MSNBC and CNN, these other, you know, cable news stations, which basically just exist to churn out, you know, as much sensationalistic kind of headlines as possible and keep people glued to their sets. And like I mentioned in my previous video about fear, they intentionally, you know, manufacture fear and anxiety to keep people glued to the sets. And again, it's all about profit. And, you know, politics and the media are kind of a symbiotic relationship, and ultimately it's always all about money, no matter what. And, you know, politicians and special interests, they're trying to make money. The media companies are trying to make money, and everybody's trying to figure out how to make money off of us and our interest and our attention. So one thing that we can do is to realize this and direct our attention in, you know, ways that doesn't feed into that exploitative system. And by the time my son here is old enough to understand what's going on with politics, who knows how it's going to all work, and, you know, what that's going to look like. Hopefully there's some resemblance of a democracy by the time he's older. You know, I think one thing Trump has done in weirdly a positive way is exploited all the norms and rules that usually go along with politics and governance, and has shown people how it's all bullshit. It doesn't mean anything if the person doesn't respect it. You know, if you got somebody in an office who doesn't give a shit about the rules, who's going to stop them? Especially one as powerful as the President of the United States. You know, and if you have the Congress in your corner, you can do whatever you want. Like, who's going to, you know, nobody's going to stop you. You know, people try to rise up, and you're going to get, you know, the black suited riot police cracking down on you if the that government official wants that to happen. So it's going to be very interesting to see kind of how politics progresses, especially with technology, how things are going to go. And some people would balk at this, but I almost would like a technocracy, like basically governance by computer algorithm. Let the computers figure out what are the most effective policies to pass and effective routes. Let them do simulations, and with AI and stuff now emerging, maybe the computer does have a better handle on what's good for us than we do. I know it almost starts sounding like the Matrix, like the computers putting us into the simulation because that's what they think is best for us, and we're just too self-destructive for us to even govern ourselves. But maybe it's almost like how AI can help us as a tool with certain processes now. Maybe politics is going to be the same way in governance, where we have computer-aided government, and it's almost like a self-driving car that can calculate all these different factors and hazards and figure out the best path for the driver. Maybe we can have computers figure out things like districting and like I said, what policies are going to be most effective and helpful to the biggest number of people. See, Paulie likes this idea, right, buddy? You like that idea. That might be what's happening by the time you're older. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see, huh? So, I am very interested in politics. I used to blog about it a lot. I don't write about it and harp on it as much right now because it seems all so ridiculous that, and there's just, now again with all this media, it's just like every day there's this new craziness coming out, so it's hard to even keep up. So I do want functional government, and I do want functional politics for the sake of my family and society as a whole to function. So hopefully human beings can figure out a way forward to have government that's effective, not necessarily for one side or the other, but effective for as many people as possible. And beyond that, I think we'll see what happens with this election and see how it goes. I mean, it's already been a wild ride, and it's probably not going to ease up any more before November. So we'll see how this all goes. It'll be interesting to look back and see with 2020 hindsight how things turn out. But we'll just have to wait and see. And we'll also have to wait and see what our next topic is going to be. So until then, I'm going to stop it here and get on with me and Paulie's day and continue our walk. And we'll see you all next time. So say bye, Paulie. See ya. Thanks for watching.